Hello friends, so far we have seen rules to be followed for plotting the root locus. Now in this video we will do two problems based on the same. Let us begin. Let us start with the very first problem where g of s h of s is given, which is k upon s into s square plus 4s plus 13. Please understand one thing. If you want to have a root locus, what must be given to you? It's compulsory the loop gain. If the loop gain is not given, let's say the closed loop transfer function is given, so from the closed loop transfer function, first of all get the loop gain and then only start solving the problem. Let us count the number of poles and number of zeros first. So how many poles are there? If you look at this g of s h of s, the highest order of s can be considered as 3. So there are 3 poles, and if you look at the numerator, there is no polynomial of s. So I can say that there are no zeros. So there are only poles and there are no zeros, right? You know that in root locus, what happens? The journey of the root locus start with the pole and it get terminated into zeros. Unfortunately, there are no zeros. So the total number of root locus branches which are tending to infinity is p minus z. In this case, all the 3 poles will travel towards infinity. So I can say that all poles will travel to infinity. So once you have poles and zeros, you can actually plot a pole zero plot in order to get the rough idea how the root locus will go about. So when you equate this denominator to 0, one of the pole that you will see present at origin, and s square plus 4s plus 13, if you equate it to 0, then it will give you complex conjugate poles. So at my end I have already calculated. I'll just write the values of poles I have. So one pole is at s equal to 0 and the other complex conjugate pole that I have got as -2 plus minus j3. Once you have this, just plot them in S-plane. So first pole I have already plotted. The second pole is a complex conjugate. So the real part is -2 and the imaginary part is 3j and minus 3j. Now first of all, try to determine where the root locus will lie on negative real axis. If you remember, we have already studied the rule that the negative real part or a point on a negative real part would be on root locus provided the total number of poles plus zeros to right half of that point should be odd in number. So over here, between let's say 0 to -2, there will be a root locus. Why there will be a root locus? It is a common sense. Because if you be an observer here and if you look at the right hand side, the total number of poles and zeros, now there are no zeros. So total number of poles to the right hand side is only 1. And then if I'm talking about -2 to minus infinity, even this case, there is a root locus present. Why? Because even if you observe from this side, the number of poles towards your right are 3 in number. So again, they are odd in nature. So obviously the root locus will lie on this negative real axis. And obviously now try to determine the probable nature of the root locus that you will get. Okay, so what could be the nature? That definitely all the 3 poles has to travel to infinity, because we know the reason that there are 3 poles but there are unfortunately no zeros. So all the poles will travel to infinity, meaning that if I assume, let's say this is p1, let's say this is p2, and let's say this is pole number 3, so I can clearly see my pole number 3 is traveling to infinity, meaning that if you remember that even though the poles are moving towards infinity, they need a specific direction. That specific direction is given by angle of, I hope you remember, it is called as angle of asymptotes. So definitely you will observe one of the angle of asymptote will be 180-degree, because as you can see, this pole is moving to infinity at an angle of 180-degree. So again, we will definitely get that angle of asymptote, but before that I know this theory. Okay, so first of all, what I need is centroid. So I'm sure you remember the centroid calculation. So in this case, there are no zeros, so we will take only summation of real part of poles divided by p minus z. So if I do so, so the first pole is having the real part as -2, the second pole is having the real part as -2, and the third pole is having the real part as 0, divided by p minus z. If you do, it is 3. So how much you get? Centroid value is -4/3. Once you have the centroid value, now I can actually calculate angle of asymptotes. How many angle of asymptotes you require? You know that the number of angle of asymptotes is always equal to p minus z. So over here, p minus z is equal to how much? It is 3. So number of asymptote angles you require total 3 in number. And for that we have a predefined formula. I'm sure you remember. It is given as phi a equal to 2q plus 1 times 180-degree divided by p minus z, where since you want only 3 angles, I'll be taking only 3 possible values of q, that is 0, 1, 2. Now just substitute the value of q as 0, then q equal to 1, and then q equal to 2, and of course your p minus z is fixed, which is 3, right? So when you substitute q equal to 0, you get the first asymptote angle as, so it is, if q is equal to 0, it is just 180-degree divided by 3, so it comes out to be 60-degree, isn't it? So for q equal to 0, you got angle of asymptote. The first angle equal to 60 degrees. Since you want only 3 values, I have taken 3 possible values. Q equal to 0, Q equal to 1, Q equal to 2. So let us calculate for Q equal to 1. In that case, Q is equal to 1. So 2 into 1 is 2 plus 1, 3. So the next angle of asymptote that you will get, 3 times 180-degree divided by 3. So 3 gets cancelled. It is 180-degree. And the last angle you will get it when you substitute q equal to 2. So now you know the formula, substitute q equal to 2 and calculate it yourself and cross check that the angle of asymptote, the last angle that you supposed to get is 300-degree. So you got 3 angles. Come on, it is 60-degree, 180-degree and 300-degree. Didn't I tell you that one of the angle of asymptote would be 180-degree? And that's the reason why, as you can look at pole number 3, okay, as you can see at pole number 3, it is traveling to infinity at an angle of 180-degree. So as I said that now we have cross checked it. So regarding pole 1 and pole 2, so pole 1, I can say it will move to infinity with an angle of 60-degree, let's say, or that will actually guide pole 1 to travel to 60-degree, and this 300-degree will be helping your pole 2 to move towards infinity. We'll see how. So let me draw the rough structure of the root locus that probably I'll get. If you remember, we had total 3 poles, one pole at origin, the other one was a complex conjugate. So this is 3j, this is minus 3j, this is 0, and this is minus 2. And we knew that the root locus is lying on the complete negative real axis. Now, first of all, to move ahead, first of all, we will have our centroid. If you remember, the value of centroid that I got is -4/3, and the angle of asymptotes, I got 3 angles, 60-degree, 180-degree and 300-degree. So first of all, we will complete this. Okay, so -4/3, meaning that it will be somewhere over here. So this is what we have, the value of centroid. So there are 3 angles expected from this point. The first angle is 60-degree. So let us draw that 60-degree. first angle I have drawn of 60 degree, the second angle is 180 degree. So as you can see, it will come on the same axis, and then there is 300 degree. So if I draw 300 degree, it will be somewhere over here, as you can see clearly. If I assume, let's say this is pole number 3, this is pole number 1, and this is pole number 2. Pole number 3 is traveling to infinity with the 180 degree. So I got one of the branch clearly. It is moving in this direction, isn't it? Now the discussion is related with pole number 1 and pole number 2. This pole number 1 and pole number 2 will also have the root locus branch which will go towards infinity. But then if the root locus is going to depart from pole 1 as well as pole 2, it will depart with a specific angle, and if you remember, that angle is what we called as angle of departure. Secondly, once I have that angle, definitely it is going to follow, this asymptote, and it will cross my j omega axis for sure. And whatever happening above real axis, the same will happen over here, that is below real axis, that is below negative real axis. So as you can see, it is also crossing j omega axis. If it is crossing j omega axis, I must have something called as intersection on j omega axis. So I need to even calculate intersection on j omega axis. So let's see how to go about it. So let me go for intersection on j omega axis. So as I said even earlier, the intersection of j omega axis can be calculated by the roots array by applying special case number 2, if you remember. For that, you require a characteristic equation, and characteristic equation is given as 1 plus g of s h of s 0. So let me tell you, g of s h of s is already given. It's just I have to substitute as 1 plus g of s h of s is what? It is k whole divided by, it is s into s square plus 4s plus what? It is 13, and this is equal to 0. Let us cross multiply this. You will get s cube plus 4s square plus 13s plus k equal to what? 0. So now let us arrange the roots array. So it starts from highest order, that is s to the power 3, s to the power 2, s to the power 1, s to the power 0. So let me write their alternate coefficients. So first coefficient is 1, then the next coefficient is 13, and thereafter the remaining coefficients, which is 4 and what? K. So the next coefficient I can calculate, it is 4 into 13 minus k divided by 4, then this is 0, and the last element I supposed to get as s0 element over here, that is k. So very well, I told it very precisely, whenever you want an intersection on j omega axis, you should impose special case 2. And if you remember, what is special case number 2? Special case number 2 means there should be a presence of all 0 row. I repeat, there should be a presence of all 0 row, and it always occur at the odd power of degree. Odd power of degree over here, it is s1. So all 0 row is possible over here if this highlighting element, whatever element I am highlighting, it should be equated to 0. It should be equated with 0. So what it is 4 into 13 minus k upon 4. So let me equate 4 into 13 minus k by 4, that is to 0. So k value that you will get is 54, and let me tell you, it is called as a k marginal value. So this is called as k marginal value, or it is sometimes also called as k critical value, because during this it becomes a critically stable. So now we have got a k marginal value. Now get the auxiliary equation. So how to get auxiliary equation? Very easy. You will always get auxiliary equation from the row which is just above the all 0 row. So in this case, this all 0 row, that was the row which gave you a special case 2. So S2 row will give you an auxiliary equation. So as you can see, there are coefficients, that is 4 and k. With this, you can get the auxiliary equation as 4s square plus k equal to 0. This is what we called as an auxiliary equation. So let me write this auxiliary equation again. So auxiliary equation, you are going to equate it to 0. In this case, it is 4s square plus k equal to 0. Now let me be very specific. Here k I'm going to treat as k marginal. So 4s square plus 52, that is equal to 0. So 4s square becomes minus 13, or I supposed to say minus 52 only, or now s square I mean to say it is minus 13, or I can say s equal to plus minus. You know that root of negative number introduces imaginary, so it is under root of 13j. These are intersection points on j omega axis. Try to understand, I'm saying points because there are 2 points. The one point is root 13j and the other point is minus root 13j. Look at this. Look at this. I have already done with that. J root 13 and minus j root 13. Okay, now the only one thing is left. You know what? The root locus is going to depart from pole 1. So for that, it is going to depart with a specific angle, and that angle is called as phi d. So this phi d, or we studied that as theta d. So let us calculate this theta d. How to calculate theta d? Let's see. I'll again draw a pole 0 plot here. So we have 3 poles here. You know that angle of departure is to be calculated only for complex conjugate poles. So we have got only 2 complex conjugate poles, but out of it we have to calculate complex conjugate pole, out of which we have to calculate the angle of departure only for one pole, because for the other pole it will follow the same, because we know that there is always a symmetry about the real axis. So let me say this is pole 1, or let's say this is pole 1, this is pole 2, and the pole 3. So for pole 1, if I want to get the angle of departure, what I need to do, from the rest of the poles, you have to draw the connection. That is, you're going to connect this pole 3 to pole 1. And then from pole 2 to pole 1, I have already connected. So let us assume this is theta 1. And let me assume this is theta 2. So what is the angle of departure in this case? So angle of departure theta d is 180 degree minus of, it is theta 1 plus theta 2. Out of which theta 1 is 90 degree, because you can observe this easily, it is right angle triangle. The only thing is to calculate theta 2. How to calculate theta 2? Let us see. So don't forget, what we have over here is minus 2, what we have over here is 3j, and this is minus 3j, isn't it? Now you are not in a capacity to find theta 2 directly, but why can't we find this angle? Let us assume this angle as alpha. Let us assume this angle is alpha, and can't you see this is actually a right angle triangle? Now if I really see what is tan of phi or tan of alpha, what is tan of theta? It is the opposite side upon adjacent side. So opposite side is how much? If you look at this carefully, this is 2. That is opposite side. Rather, it is not 2, it is 3 actually. Let me correct it. And if you look at this, this is 2. So tan of alpha will be equal to 3 by 2. This gives you alpha, which is tan inverse of 3 by 2. So what is alpha? Just take your calculator and calculate tan inverse of 3 by 2. You will get 56.31. But again, I wasn't looking for alpha. What I'm actually looking at theta 2. But once I know what is alpha, I can calculate theta 2 equal to 180 degree minus alpha. So theta 2 is nothing but 180 degree minus alpha. So just substitute and get the theta value as 123.69 degree. Now I know the value of theta 2 also. I know the value of theta 1 is by default 90 degree because it is a right angle triangle. Substitute theta 1 as well as theta 2, which is 123.69 degree over here, and get the value of theta t. So theta t is simply 180 minus of 90 degree plus 123.69 degree, and after solving you will come to know that theta d is minus 33.69 degree. This is nothing but the angle of departure. This is nothing but angle of departure. So what I'll do over here, I'll just draw it quickly. Please pay attention. We had three poles, two complex conjugate pole, or I can say one complex conjugate pole and one pole at origin, out of which the one pole were traveling to infinity with an angle of 180 degree, isn't it? This is minus 2, this is 3j, this is minus 3j, and then with the angle of asymptotes we got three angles and we plotted them from somewhere over here. One of that angle was 60 degree, the other one was 180 degree, and there was one more angle which is 300 degree. And what was the value of that centroid? If you remember, it was, if I'm not wrong, it is minus 3 by 4 or it is minus 4 by 3. Okay, so this is nothing but minus 4 by 3. Okay, next, for one pole, that is pole number 3, we got how it is approaching to infinity. Now regarding pole 1 and pole 2, we have all the information now with us. So from pole 1, it is going to depart at an angle of minus 33.69. Now try to understand how to draw it. With respect to pole 1, when you have to get an angle of minus 33.69 degree, it means that angle will come over here because it is a negative angle, isn't it? Now once you know the angle for pole 1, similar angle will come for pole 2, which will be positive 33.69, because you know the fact that it will always follow the symmetry with respect to real axis. So whatever happens above real axis, same thing will happen below the real axis only. And as you are aware that pole 1 will be traveling to infinity, and who is going to guide pole 1? Obviously this asymptote which is situated at 60 degree. So now it is going to guide, okay, it is going to guide, and then it is slowly moving to infinity as k tends to infinity. As you can see, it is crossing j omega axis at point root 13j. This is also we have calculated, or j root 13 you can say. Also, what is happening above real axis, same thing will happen below real axis also. So who is going to guide, this pole to move towards infinity? Obviously the third asymptote, which is situated at 300 degree. So this angle was 300 degree. So slowly it is moving to infinity, and where it is crossing this j omega axis, obviously minus j root 13. I'm sure you understood this. So this is how you should plot a root locus. Okay, so finally with the help of directions also I can show like this. So as you can see, there are total 3 branches which are leading to infinity, which are moving towards infinity, because there are no finite zeros inside the function, that is g of s h of s function. I'm sure now you have understood this problem with all the steps. Okay, here we never required to calculate a breakaway point. Why breakaway points are not needed here? Can you guess why breakaway points are not needed here? Because the breakaway points are needed when two poles are traveling and there is a chance by which they are going to. Why breakaway point is not needed here? It is just because you don't have a situation where two poles are traveling towards each other and there is a chance by which they can collide on each other. So there is no such situation. Am I right? Because as you can see, the pole 1 and pole 2 are moving independently. They are not going to cross, or they are not going to collide on each other, for which you have to calculate a breakaway point. That's the reason why we have not calculated a breakaway point. So please understand, even though the rules are given, these rules, not necessary that all the rules will be used for all the problems. It depends upon the situation. In this situation, even we required something called as theta d, that is nothing but angle of departure, but not in every problem you will require to apply this a formula. You know that it comes into picture only when you have got a complex conjugate poles or complex conjugate zeros. For complex conjugate poles you have theta d, and for complex conjugate zeros you have theta a. I hope you remember that. So let's move to the next problem quickly. Look at this problem. Count the number of poles, number of zeros. Once again, if you see, there are 3 poles, but there are no zeros. Again, P minus Z branches will approach to infinity again. So this time, 3 branches of root locus will approach to infinity. Then I'm sure you must have got the thing that if 3 branches are approaching to infinity, you require 3 angles of asymptote, where you will be substituting the value of q as 0, 1, 2, isn't it? Of course, you require to calculate centroid here, you have to calculate angle of asymptotes here. Along with that, what extra things you need? Let us see after we get the all values of poles first. So let us try to get the values of poles here. When you equate this denominator to 0, try to get the values of poles first. So from S you will get pole at origin. From S plus 3, when you equate it to 0, you got the second pole, that is at minus 3. And S square plus 2S plus 2, when you equate it to 0, you get a complex conjugate pole, that is minus 1 plus minus 1j. So I can call this as S3 comma S4. So there are total 4 poles. There are total 4 poles. Okay, there are no 3 poles, there are 4 poles. If there are 4 poles, it means there are 4 branches that will approach to infinity. There are 4 branches which will approach to infinity, meaning that you will require 4 asymptote angles this time. That is, q will be varied from 0, 1, 2, 3 this time. And of course, you require a centroid also. So first of all, let me write over here by step number of asymptotes is always p minus z. Poles are 4, there are no zeros, so number of asymptotes that you require 4. You require to calculate what? That is centroid. How do we get centroid? Okay, it is just summation of all real part of poles. So the first one is 0, next the real part is minus 3, then minus 1, minus 1. Why minus 1, minus 1 taken 2 times? Because these are 2 poles for which the real part is minus 1. Whole divided by p minus z. In this case, p minus z is 4. So it comes out to be minus 5 by 4. That is equal to minus 1.25. So we have the value of centroid also. This is the value of centroid, okay? So what we have calculated is centroid. So you know that centroid is the point which is present on real axis from which we draw this angle of asymptotes. After that, we calculate angle of asymptotes also. Let me tell you, my intention is not to solve this problem in detail, but then to draw the rough structure so that you will get the complete idea. Because ultimately, in the competitive exam like GATE, you don't have to apply the conventional method to solve the complete root locus. You should actually get the enough idea how your final product root locus will look like. And from the 4 options, you have to correct the one. So let's see. Obviously, the gate problems also I'm going to solve in the next session. But in this session, I'll just give you the enough idea how our root locus will look like at the end. So if you remember, the angle of asymptotes are given as 2q plus 1 multiplied by 180 degree divided by P minus Z, where Q is varied over 0, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3. Why so? Because I want total 4 angle of asymptotes. 4 angle of asymptotes do I require. So just keep on substituting. Don't forget that P minus Z is nothing but the difference between poles and zeros, which is 4 this time, isn't it? So just get and verify your values over here. So one value you will get 45 degree, the other value you will get 135 degree, third angle you will get 225 degree, and the last angle that you will get is 315 degree. So these are the 4 angle of asymptotes you will get. These 4 angle of asymptotes you have to draw on the real axis. From which point? Of course, from the centroid. Let's draw this. So let me first of all plot my poles. One pole is present at origin. The other pole is present at -3. That is a real pole, negative real pole. And there are complex conjugate poles also. So this is -1, let's say. Let's say this is 1j. Let's say this is -1j. Fine. So I have plotted all of my poles, okay? Let us try to figure out where the root locus will be present on negative real axis. So let us see. If you first of all look between 0 to -1, 0 to -1, so please concentrate on these 2 points. Here being observer, you can observe that on the right hand side there is only one pole, meaning that this is definitely a root locus area. On this area, the root locus will be present. Now if you become an observer over here, and now if you count the number of poles to the right hand side, again they are 3 in number, which is odd value. So definitely even the root locus will be present between 0 to -3 for sure. So between 0 to -3, the root locus would be present. Now what is after -3? Do you think the root locus will be present after -3? So being observer, if you count the number of poles over here, it is first pole, then this is second pole, this is third pole, and this is fourth pole. Since they are even in nature, definitely there would be no root locus area beyond -3 to -infinity. I hope you understood that. So here root locus area on the negative real axis is only and only between 0 to -3. Yes or no? Okay. Now what I wanted is to plot those angles first. So there are 4 angles total. For that I need to confirm where is my centroid. So centroid is at -1.25. So somewhere over here, it is -1.25, from which you have to draw 4 angles. Okay, you have to draw 4 angles. Which are they? So one of the angle is 45 degree. So this is 45 degree. Then we have 135 degree. So the other angle is 135 degree. The other angle is present at 225 degree. And the last angle is present at 315 degree. I hope you understood these angles. Let me show you once again. The first angle is 45 degree. The second angle is 135 degree. The third angle is 225 degree. And the last angle, that is nothing but this angle, it is 315 degree. I hope you understood that. So once you understood that, okay, now these are the angles. Okay, these angles are basically guidelines. These are guidelines for what? For those branches of root locus who are going to approach to infinity, because we know that these root locus cannot be drawn randomly. If root locus branches are going towards infinity, then definitely they should be guided well. And who guides them? Obviously asymptotes guide them. Therefore we have got these 4 angles. Okay, so let me now rough them so I can draw it in a proper way, rest of the root locus. Okay, now next thing is that if you observe carefully, if I assume, let's say this is pole number 1, let's say this is pole number 2, let's say this is pole number 3, and let us assume this one as pole number 4. This is pole number 4. Okay, so if you observe properly, for pole number 2 I'm talking about, for pole number 2, definitely it is going towards infinity. But who is going to guide pole 2 to go towards infinity? Obviously, the first angle, that is 45 degree, if you remember. So this pole 2 is definitely going to depart at a specific angle, and that specific angle is what we called as what? Theta d. That theta d is nothing but angle of departure, and I'm sure you remember how to calculate angle of departure. As I said, my intention is not to calculate each and everything here, but just to give you the procedure and the enough idea how the final product will look like, because at the end of competitive exams like GATE, you require a final product only. So please use your common sense and just try to follow this. Somewhere over here it is going to touch this j omega axis, then you require even the intersection point on j omega axis. So here you have to calculate phi d also, as well as intersection point on j omega axis also. And as you are aware that the root locus is always symmetrical with respect to real axis, so whatever happening with pole 2, the same thing will happen with pole 3 also. So this is also going to depart with the same angle, and thereafter it is going to actually follow this centroid, or I would say not centroid but angle of asymptote, and definitely it is also going to cross this j omega axis at a particular point. Now, regarding pole 2 and pole 3, we had an enough discussion. Let us discuss about pole 1 and pole 4. Please look at this. Please look at this, pole 1 and pole 4. As you can see, there is a root locus present between pole 1 and pole 4. What does that mean? What does that mean is actually pole 1 starts traveling towards pole 4 and pole 4 starts traveling towards pole 1 at a particular point considered as what? Come on, it is called as a breakaway point. Why breakaway point? Because this time you have to calculate breakaway point, because two poles, as you can see, they are traveling towards each other, so definitely they will collide on a particular point, and once they collide, they will leave the real axis at a particular point. And if you remember, if they are leaving the real axis at a particular point, that point is basically called as breakaway point. So from the breakaway point, even if they leave, they have to travel to infinity. You need not to worry, you have already drawn the angle of asymptotes who will guide them to travel towards infinity. So this is how you are getting this root locus. Okay, I'm sure now you have understood this root locus. It is very easy. This is the final product that you will see. So I'm sure you have understood this. You need not to worry how to calculate breakaway points. We have few videos left. In that, I will definitely teach you how to calculate the breakaway point. You need not to worry about it. So thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned and see all the videos. Okay.